Why do you think so many men look successful on paper, yet internally they are completely complacent and unfulfilled?
Uh, yeah, I think it's because we love comfort and we want to lean into comfort, and we don't like discomfort. And so we stay where it's warm and easy and soft and what is familiar to us. And we deliberately avoid the discomfort zone. I did, I did some ultra running last year. I got hurt, but I was getting coached by this gal who's a 100-mile crazy woman. I have a lot of respect for her. I shouldn't say it like that. But she gave me this advice, Frank, and she said, when you're running and you're tired, she said, get uncomfortable and then get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think that's what's lacking today is we don't get uncomfortable and then we don't get comfortable being uncomfortable, but we have to in order to grow. But we don't. It's easy to stay complacent and stay in the comfort zone.
Do you think that there was a shift? Do you think that there was a point in time, because you said we don't do that today, which maybe tells me that there was a point where we knew how to get comfortable being comfortable. Is this a modern problem?
I think that no, I think it's always been there, honestly. But I think that it's I'm living in today's time and I see it. And so it's easy for me to say that. But I think that we do have it easy today. We have more comforts than ever before. Rockefeller, one of the richest men in the world 100 years ago, did not have half of the modern conveniences that we do today, half of the comforts. You know, he didn't have indoor plumbing, indoor electricity, all that stuff, cars. And we have that stuff and we can still be poor. So I do think that we live in an era where comfort is more easily had, but I don't think that we're unique to this time. Like comfort is, it's maybe looked different over the ages, but there's been opportunity for everyone to be comfortable.
Yeah. I think our coach gave you great advice, seeking discomfort, but then learning to be comfortable in the discomfort. I'm curious for you, nothing about running sounds comfortable to me. How did you learn to be comfortable in the discomfort of running?
Well, the biggest thing I think is you train for it. Specifically on ultra runs is you might do a 4-hour run on a Saturday. And on Sunday, when you're shot and you're tired and you want to sleep in, you're going to get up and you're going to do another 3. And that is what getting comfortable with the uncomfortable looks like. It's I don't feel like this. I want to sleep in. It's a Sunday morning, but I'm going to do this and I'm going to run on tired legs. My body already hurts. And we're going to do this because we're going to know it's going to make us better and it's going to get us to the finish line. So it's sometimes it's just a matter of choosing to do the hard and leaning in and getting uncomfortable in the discomfort.
I think your story is one that'll resonate a lot with our audience. A lot of the guys have built success in one area or the other. You know, maybe it's been financial success. Maybe they've been an athlete. You know, maybe they've been an ultra marathon runner or, you know, competed in bodybuilding. So it's like there's these areas that we know that in order to succeed, we have to learn to be uncomfortable, right? You don't build wealth or financial success. You don't build entrepreneurial success without sitting in discomfort. Now, to you may be attached to the long-term goal, so that comfort doesn't feel as difficult as it were to maybe somebody seeing outside or isn't as passionate about that discomfort to lead you to your goal. Then eventually success, you get to where you want and then you become complacent. How does a guy that has maybe at one point is like been comfortable, reached success, end up becoming complacent?
I think, Frank, I would love to talk about this because I think this is a big problem is complacency after success. And you see this with marriages, you see this with families, like there are men who know how to work, they know how to build, and they did the things to date their wife, they did the things to build their company, but at some point they gave in to the complacency, and they allowed it to take a root, and it began this drift. And before long, their business, which could have continued to grow and go from a 7 to an 8 to a 9 to a 10-digit company, it plateaus. And it plateaus because that entrepreneur, he quit grinding like he did at first, and he quit learning, and he quit changing his mindset, and he got comfortable. And he got comfortable because it was easy, and he didn't have to grind anymore. He had enough money to not live paycheck to paycheck and have the nice house and the boat and the car. But my question would be, what could you do? What could that guy do if he would continue to be as intentional with his business, with his marriage, with his kids as he was at first? Because I mean, kids is another one, right? You get a 1-year-old or 2-year-old, you're on the ground playing with them all the time. But for some reason, when they get to be 12, 13, 14, you don't hang out with them like you used to. And but what would that look like? And so I think that's huge. I think that it's so easy, and that's why we talk about, you don't kill complacency once. It's continuous. It's daily. It's minute by minute, and it's everyday choices. You talk a lot about pornography, right? I can't say I'm not going to do porn anymore, and it's over, right? 10 minutes from now, I may get a ding on my phone, and it may lure me into that. So it's continuous, and not to sound hopeless, but like, we have to continue to fight as men to be intentional about the things that are important and the things that are lasting. Otherwise, comfort gets comfortable, and we don't realize it's like boiling that frog. You fall into drift, and you drift further and further away from where you're trying to get to.
Yeah, we have a saying in our community, right? Because a lot of guys will come in, how long is this going to take? When am I finally going to be free from porn? And I've seen a lot of guys come in very intentional from the beginning, right? They're working the program, they're working the process, they're intentional about their habits, how they're showing up, they're intentional about their device control, the things that they're not allowing themselves to consume. They create some success, they get complacent in how they're living, right? And then they slide back. And it's like, no, you have to understand that freedom from porn, just like success in life is never an end destination, is a continuous pursuit that we must be on intentionally every single day. You have to show up daily living intentionally as a porn-free man. You have to show up daily living intentionally as a successful man. You have to show up daily living intentionally as a father. So I'm curious for you, like, how can a guy recognize if he is beginning to live complacent and falling into the comfort? Like, what are the signs? Is it something you feel? Is it like, how do you monitor, kind of audit your day to day to maybe get in front of it so it doesn't reach a boiling point where life kind of crumbles underneath you?
There's a saying, what gets measured gets results. And I think that's key. So I think you got to take time to reflect. For me, I like to do it Sundays. I like to look at my week, evaluate my week. And I think it's an easy time just to say, how is my family? Like, did my wife and I try to do a date a week? Did we do that? Try to have family night. Did we do that? Did I work out like I said I was gonna? But if you're never looking at it, if you're not somehow tracking those things that are important to you, you don't even know how far off you are. And so I think that you do have to do some personal reflection to know where you're at, and to know that you have drifted, because otherwise you don't even know. In regards to losing weight, if you use the same intentionality on getting on a scale every day and measuring it, gaining weight, as you do when you try to lose it, like, you would be conscientious of that. But we don't measure the weight gain. We only measure it when we're trying to see results. And I think that's the thing. I think we need to measure our life more, and ask the hard questions, and do the self evaluation. And if we're not gonna, then try to have an accountability group of men who will say, how are you doing? How's your marriage? How's porn? How's your fitness? Are you working out?
Yeah, I remember hearing an analogy one time, and it was like, if a flight is taking off from Miami flying to LA, the minute it takes off the ground, like, if it's 1 degree off course, like, it won't feel that it's moving in the wrong direction. But that 1 degree over the course of 2,000, 3,000 miles, it's the difference between landing in San Francisco or like Southern Arizona. It's like, if the pilot isn't constantly monitoring the track that they're on throughout the entire flight, like it's the difference of ending up in a completely different part of the country. I think it's the same thing with our life, right? Are we waiting towards the end of the year to do an analyzed and breakdown, or are we having these weekly, maybe even daily check-in points? So what does that maybe look like for you? Is there a framework that you kind of operate and live in? I know you have your 7S. How does that kind of like look like on a weekly checklist for you?
So for me, I set annual goals. I break those down into quarterly goals. And then I've got an accountability group, and we set weekly commitments. We call them commitments, but all those things, if you track them back, they all boil down to habits. So whatever I'm after, if I'm building a company and I know I got to get XYZ clients, like you just make that a daily thing. I'm going to make 5 calls. But the same can be true on your fitness goals, right? If you wanted to be able to bench press 250 pounds by the end of the year, you could reverse engineer that. Marriage, like, it's important to date your wife. That's what you did at the beginning. If you suddenly got divorced, guess what? You'd go find another woman and you'd date her. So let's just date the wife you have, but let's track it. Let's see if you can get 50 dates in this year and just consistently do it. If you get behind, catch up. You get 2 dates in a week, like who cares? But track the numbers, do the thing, and do it. So for me, yeah, I break it down annually, quarterly, and then quarterly into weekly. And I've got an accountability group. We submit once a week on Mondays. We submit our score on our commitments, our habit score, and we talk about what went well and what didn't go well. And then we identify what our one thing for the week is. And I think it's huge because it gives me way more accountability to, do the 10-minute ab workout at 9:00 at night, because they're going to ask what happened. Like, you committed to this, but you didn't do it. So what's going on, Marty?
Love that you said if you get off track, like get caught up. Like don't abandon the mission, like just because you missed one thing. I think a lot of guys, in fitness, they'll start on Monday. I'm going to follow this. Come Wednesday, Thursday, maybe they, grabbed a special treat. Now they blow it for the next 3.5 days. It's like, how important is it? And how often do you see guys like just completely abandon ship, whether it's dating their wife, whether it's launching the new business, whether it's committing to the fitness goal? I think so many guys, maybe this is a complacent mindset where if it wasn't perfect, then it's not even any level of success.
I think that's huge. And I think that's why, as coaches, we have to ask them their why. Like, you identified this as important, whatever it is. Let's just say it's fitness. And by Thursday, you gave up on it. So let's go back to the why. What was the reason you gave me? It was XYZ. So has that changed? No. And circle back to that. And I think that why has to be bigger than themselves. I think, like, for instance, if it's money, like, you'll get enough and you'll quit. But if it's legacy money and it's maybe money you're going to give away, like that's what I would inspire people to be. Instead of being an entrepreneur to build wealth for yourself, what would happen if you had a goal to write $100 million check to somebody? Like, what would your business look like then if it wasn't about you, if it was about them? So I think it's important to have that strong why. That's going to probably push me to grind harder through my business than if I'm going to get $10,000 a month, because I'm going to get $10,000 a month. I'm going to get complacent. I'm going to be happy with it or whatever. So,
yeah. I think it's Napoleon Hill said, a burning desire is the starting point of all success. A lot of people, when they try to start, when they begin to move down a new path, whether it's a fitness goal, a financial goal, building a business, like even courting and finding a relationship, like they're running from a pain, right? The relationship, they're in pain because they're alone. So they begin to try to be proactive about dating. And then they find the person, they get married. Well, now they're no longer in pain, but they're not running towards anything, right? So you kind of need something that you're running towards, a desire for something greater. Like, because if you only use getting out of pain as a motivator, you will stop the minute you're out of pain. That could be financially. Like if you're broke and you're like, you know what, I just need to stop being broke. Well, the minute you have enough to cover the bills and expenses, like you kind of lost that desire. If you're sick and tired of being fat, like you'll only train and diet long enough to where you can look at yourself and accept it in the reality when you're in the mirror. In reality, like there's a way better version of you if you really begin to desire like the best physical shape that you can be in. So how does this show for you? How does having a burning desire and ultimate aim keep us from becoming complacent?
Well, yeah, it anchors us to something bigger than us. Um, it, for instance, I learned last year, Frank, that you're more likely to become a millionaire after age 30 than get a six pack. And I'm kind of this like 1%er guy. You're like, I'm always wanting to do the thing that no one else will do. So I said to my wife, I said, that's going to be me. I'm going to do that. And she kind of eye rolled like, okay. And I've been on that mission for 5-6 months. It is hard. It is so hard. And it is hard because it's not just a workout and it's not just eating right. It's all of that. And then you have to get this. I mean, you would know, you have to get all the nutrients. You know, you can't just calorie deficit. You've got to keep the protein coming. So you've got to do all these things, but it's hard. It's really hard. And the thing that keeps me anchored to it is it's number one, I said I would. So I'm going to be a man of my word. And number two, it is a lifestyle. I do want to eat cleaner and I do want to work my core. And that is what keeps me anchored. That's what keeps me doing it. If I suddenly remembered at 9:00 at night that I haven't done the abs yet, well, we're going to do them. So I think that's what it is. You have to choose the lifestyle and reframe your mind. It's not a 3-month hack to get XYZ. We're going to take this serious and we're going to change our lifestyle on this. And it's going to have an impact, not just for us, but for other people.
Yeah, I love that. You've obviously made it your mission and, planted your flag in this Kill Complacency movement that you're building. I'm assuming there's a desire, behind you about helping men, wake up and no longer live these complacent lives. I'm curious about your journey that led you here, though. I know you were a successful business owner and you had created a lot of success financially in the real estate industry. What shifted for you? Was there a defining moment in your life where you realized, that maybe you were beginning to live complacent, so you had to figure this stuff out on your own? And then how did that kind of transition into becoming a bigger mission where you now help others?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, Frank, I learned a long time ago that my most satisfying days are when I serve others. And my most depressed or discouraging days are when they're all about me. And not that I can't have fun, but just realizing that brings me the most satisfaction. And so kind of my battle cry has been, I was a C student. I wasn't the smartest guy out there. And as I became successful in real estate, I started to realize that if I could do this, then anyone can do it. And what it really boiled down to was intentionality. And the opposite of intentionality was complacency. And so that's kind of where that birth of that came from. Is we just said, hey, we want to inspire the world to do more with their lives, to not have to live paycheck to paycheck, and to leave a legacy and an impact. And intentionality is the key to that. So I would tell your listeners, whatever you want to do, you want to have a strong, healthy marriage, like reverse engineer that and show up and do those things, because you can have that. We have that opportunity. You want a six pack, you can, it's going to take longer than I thought, but I'm going to get it. And, we can do that too. So reverse engineer that life, that legacy that you want to create, and go after it. And that's what it's all about. It's about intentionality, and the opposite of that is killing complacency.
You've mentioned a couple of times the importance of accountability. You mentioned to me you have an accountability group in Brotherhood that you meet with weekly. How does not being connected to other men set guys up to fall into complacency?
Well, I think the beautiful thing about having a group of guys you talk regularly with is that you realize you're normal. and your struggles are not isolated to you, and we can talk like men to each other. The other benefit of having a group like that is, I mean, my next closest friend is like my wife, right? But she's not a man. And Ginger, if you're listening to this, I love you very much. But men can just grind on each other a whole different way and say things that, you know, other people can't say to us. So I think it's really, really important for guys to search it out, to find a buddy and say, hey, I need you to ask how things are going. Will you call me Friday night or whatever? Just check in, and you could create the framework however you want, but it's important to have somebody in your life, at least one guy. I would argue probably 3 or 4, because someone's maybe not going to be there, and create that accountability and that the atmosphere where we do sharpen each other and we do encourage each other to do big things. Yeah, I mean, you're in the fitness world, like, you know, a guy will do so much more if he's got a buddy showing up at the gym with him every day. Like, he's gonna push harder on that max out, as opposed to if he's solo doing it by himself. Like, he's just not gonna try, not as hard. So it's huge.
Well, anybody that's been in the gym and has gone for a max lift, know that you don't go do it on your own. Like, you may not even be there with somebody, but if you're going for a PR, like, you're going to go find the guy, okay, like who's kind of at my level or close to, like, all right. And there's kind of like this unknown kind of like bro code in a gym where it's like, dude, you see, I got the 3 plates on here, man. Like, you seem like you can kind of handle at least half of this. If I kind of lose a little bit of it, can you spot me, bro? Right. And it's kind of like, it's the bro code, you know? So it's like, you're only going to know what you're capable of if you're willing to put yourself in an environment where you're doing more than you've ever done on your own. And that's in the gym, but also in life, like having your brother like with you walking through life, like you're willing to maybe step into a darker area of the woods than you would if you're by yourself. Cause like at least 2 of us, like if something happens, like the other guy's got my back or whatever. So, so important.
Yeah. No, and I didn't realize how important it was until I have it, and I realize how much it anchors me and how much I look forward to it, and how much we do push each other. Like, and we have an annual, because it's a Zoom call. And so we have at least one annual, sometimes biannual get-togethers. And dude, it's so much fun to get together with these guys, and because we've broken down walls and we've talked about the hard things, and now we get to rub shoulders and, you know, tease each other and sit in a hot tub and play footsies, even though you don't want to, but there's 6 of you. So it is what it is.
Yeah. Another thing I've heard you talk a lot about is intentionality behind your relationship with your wife, or the woman in your life that you're with. What happens to female attraction in a guy when a guy is starting to live complacent, a shell of himself? How does that show up intimately, through attraction? Like,
Yeah, what I can tell you is from experience, and not that my wife not that she didn't respect me, but when I got intentional about my health and my fitness, dude, the level of respect she suddenly had for me, because I respected myself, went through the roof. And that's what I would tell men. Like, if you're struggling in your marriage, like, dude, just go for a walk with her. It won't hurt you to get some steps, but she'll have a great time talking, and you can get more fit, and just pick a workout, and you will be surprised at what that will communicate to your wife, to your spouse, about how you think about yourself. And like, just do it. Like, I wish I could go back. Like, I could go back and like journal that whole process, but it was huge for my marriage, because I think because I started respecting myself, my wife respected me, and she would comment like, man, you're looking so good and whatever, you know? So it's good. Like, lean into it.
yeah. Do you think guys are fighting a battle from the outside? Like, is the world set up in a way, is society trying to condition men to keep them complacent.
Yes, 100%. A lot of people have heard of a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. A lesser known book by him is called Outwitting the Devil. And in it, have you read it, Frank?
Read it. I recommend anybody that does listen to the audio because it's read in two voices and it's got a much profounder impact.
Yes. But it's kind of like Napoleon Hill is doing a podcast interview with Satan. And Satan is telling him all the things he's going to do in the schools, in the churches, in the marriage, in the workplace to condition the human race to be complacent, to drift. I mean, that's the word he uses over and over and over is drift. But same thing. Like, and it's so powerful. I mean, I put my flag in the ground after I listened to it, and I was like, man, this is so powerful. I'm not gonna fall victim to this. And so, but I see it everywhere. And that book was written in like 1948 or something. But it's so prophetic with where we're at.
Yeah, it was written a short time after Think and Grow Rich, but it wasn't published for, I think, decades later. For whatever reason, the message I think you said is like, his family after his death didn't think that society was ready for it. There's another powerful book called The Naked Communist, which was written also, I think, late 40s, early 50s, where it talks about the American Communist Party agenda, and they lay out the playbook, like the 50 steps that they're going to take to kind of keep men or get men on the path of drifting. And this is what I've talked a lot about around pornography, is because in that book, within the top 20 of the 50 steps, 2 of them are directly pointing to the sexuality, hypersexuality, and pornification of our culture and society. One of them was they wanted to make pornography accessible to the masses. You and I talked on your show how it's literally in everybody's pocket and it's for free. And then they wanted to make nudity like common, like and just kind of acceptable, like in public spaces. And it's like, if you kind of look at the way that people dress these days, it's kind of like they wear less clothes to the grocery store than women in the 50s wore to a beach. And do with that what you want, but if you live in the world that I do and you see the things that men struggle with, like let's maybe bring modesty back a little bit. I think it would make the world a whole bit better place. But yeah, Outwitting the Devil changed my life. I forget the first year I read it. It was 2018. And it was just one of those kind of like, for you, probably like wake up moments, like red pill, like, oh my God, all this. So
Like, this is happening to me. I'm not doing this. He's not winning here.
yeah. Where were you then when you read that book? Like where were you drifting, and how did you begin to become intentional about no longer drifting after reading that book?
Well, I think what I would argue is that book, I started again 2 weeks ago, and that book is extremely relevant all the time. And it was probably 2019-ish when I did it. And so I was pretty well established, and not necessarily like in a bad place, but it definitely made me be like, no, that's not going to happen here. I actually had my wife, I said, you got to read this. And my wife is a truth speaker, and very, she's like, I can't do this book. He calls him Your Majesty, and theology is terrible. But for me, I could overlook those things because I could realize what Satan was doing.
Yeah. Do you think success can be a blinder of guys, right? Scoreboard is getting lit up, right, in a lot of these areas. Like how can guys, begin to not allow the success to be the drifter?
No, and I think that's huge. I think that's easy. I think it's easy to be honest, Frank. I have felt like I have really leaned into this Kill Complacency. I've written a book, and I have felt like this year, Satan, and maybe it's not spiritual warfare, but I have felt like my life I've had a lot of opportunity to be really successful, and I have felt like it has been bait, which is a distraction from where I need to be. And so I have honestly spent some time praying about it, because I feel like, man, there's all these opportunities. They're all like, I could touch these things. They would turn to gold. but is this a distraction? And I'll tell you, I'll be honest. I bought a glass shop this year, and it was a complete distraction. I never should have bought it. And it was right when all this was starting. I thought I shouldn't do this, but I thought, man, it's a good deal. It's right up my alley. And I did it, and it has been a huge distraction. And I should have listened to my intuition. So I do think that success for some people is a spiritual weapon that Satan uses to get us off track and get us sidetracked on things that are not of eternal consequence.
Man, the thing I've wrestled with a lot, it's been difficult 18 months or so kind of in the business. A lot of things have changed algorithm wise. Consumer trust, market trust is down a bit. I work in very heavy work. I had a conversation with a client earlier this week. He's just like, Frank, I don't know how you do it. Like, I don't know how you spend your days in the darkest pit of hell with men, and how you navigate and fight through it. And I'll be honest, Marty, there's been a handful of times over the years where like I've been up late at night just contemplating like 2 buttons, I could shut it all down and kind of wipe everything from the internet and just go back to sales and marketing. I had a very successful career. Like I was built a very successful marketing agency. It's like much easier cake life, but it's like, I think a lot of people think like once you take this red pill of like, this personal development, this live intentionally, like things are going to become easier. But it's like actually when you're stepping into maybe bigger mission and purpose for your life, like things become a little bit more difficult. I'm curious, like how any of that resonates with you, and like to the guy out there that is like, hey man, I'm committed to this kill complacency. But then once you move down this path, like I said, your eyes like are open more now. It's like the fight, I think, is way more clear, but it's like sometimes that older asleep life sounds a little bit easier. And I don't know if it's the comfort of the old self, right? Maybe it is. And maybe that's why I'm here asking you this question. So I know it's not baked in a great question here, but
no, it's funny. I always get up early, and I was laying in bed this morning. I normally don't lay in bed at all, but I was laying there, and I said to my wife, I said, man, I'm tired today. I just want to lay around. And I said, but I got to live up to the brand. I said, too many people are watching. And I do think that like what you're saying is real. Like I'm telling you, it was this morning for me. But we know what we've been called to, and we know it isn't easy. Whatever you've been called to, whatever your mission is, like stick to it, run the course, because that is the most important. And those other things that are easy, like comfort is a lie. And those other things that we think would be a better version of us is not going to bring us fulfillment and happiness, even if we're in a hard place.
Yeah. How has this journey strengthened your faith? I know, you live by the code of the 7 F's, with faith being the first one. I don't know if that was, intentional. I'm sure it was. But how has this journey been on strengthened your faith, and, where was your relationship with God prior, and where does that, sit in your life now?
Faith is everything. I grew up in a Christian home, was around it my whole life. I would say my first God moment was 15, 16 years old. Depressed, teenager, a lot of hormones. Looking back, that's what I would say. But at the time I wanted to kill myself, and I was going to hang myself from a big cottonwood tree we had. And I had the note, I had the rope around my neck. And I seriously felt God say, I have bigger plans for you, Marty. Don't do it. So that was a big anchor point for me. And I didn't tell anyone about that. I actually wrote about that in my book. It's kind of my coming out secret. But that was a big anchor point for me with my faith. So from there, I worked on my relationship with God. I started reading my Bible, went to Bible college, did the thing. So faith has always been a big part of my life. And we talked on my show about truth. For me, faith is the foundation. It's the truth that I want to build on. And I don't want to say you can't do intentionality without faith, but I think it makes it so much easier because you have an anchor and you have somebody to go to, and you feel a call, a battle call from somebody. And so when the going gets hard, you remember that, and your anchor holds. And regardless of the winds that blow, you're strong and secure because you know that somebody bigger and more powerful has a plan for you. So
Yeah. It's powerful. Do you have a daily practice? How do you intentionally spend time with God? You've talked about your fitness routines. You've shared the intentionality behind dating. What's your intentionality in spending time in God's word and with God?
yeah, so honestly, it starts the night before. Every night I set my Bible out on the counter. So it's the first thing. And a lot of times I used to sit down while I did it. Now I stand, and I actually do some leg stretches just because, like, why not have a stack? I probably have some ADHD, so it helps too. But I read, right now I'm reading a chapter of the New Testament. And I found out a few years ago, Frank, that it was a check mark for me, and I would just read and move on. And so I started a journal. And so I journal. I will read until something jumps out to me. And then I'll journal that part. I'll journal a thought around it, and I'll journal a prayer around it. And that has really helped me not forget what I read in 5 minutes. So, and then honestly, I have a prayer list. I work through a prayer list just because prayer is hard. Prayer has always been a hard discipline for me. And I have found if I have a prayer list, it's fun to see results and get results. And if I don't have a prayer list, I think I prayed, but maybe it was like 2 people. So it's not the same. But that's pretty standard for me early in the morning between 5 and 5:30.
What's one thing that you can share with us that you're praying for right now?
One thing I'm praying for is for money to impact. I started praying for that last February, and I kind of came to this conclusion that I'm a good-natured guy, and if God were to give me money, I would use it to impact. And so that is a specific prayer I pray every day. Lord, give me money so I can impact others.
You mentioned you got an upcoming book. I'm not sure the release date, but guys, let's get behind that. Let's support that. Pick up the book if you're enjoying this conversation. Make sure to support Marty and the Kill Complacency movement. Grab a copy, grab a couple copies of the book, share it with as many people as you possibly can. But we talked about, drifting, how Satan is intentionally, building and creating society to keep people drifting. I know you're a father. A lot of guys listening to this are going to have kids in home. It's probably the most difficult time right now to raise kids that don't grow up to be complacent. What steps are you proactively taking in how you're raising your children and family to ensure that your kids don't fall into the trap of complacency?
That's a loaded question. A lot. I've got 3 out of the home, and I've got 3 in the home. So it's really fun for me to see my kids become adults because the rubber meets the road. And there has been some of this. There's been some ups and downs in there. Always probably will be with the adults, but it's good with my younger boys. And that's what I'll speak to right now. I've got a 15, 12, and 9-year-old. We don't do cell phones until you get your driver's license. We do have a weekly family thread, and we do share our screen times every week. Every Sunday morning, you pull it up, screenshot it, put it on there. And we don't really judge, but it is in front of everybody. I typically win. I usually have the most. My son-in-law's on there, and he usually has the least. So that's something we do for some intentionality. We do like no phones in bedrooms. There's a charging place on the counter. And I guess something else because I'm trying to get this 6-pack and because I'm trying to get my sons to cover the Bible cover to cover this year. So we listen to the Old Testament together. It takes about 10 minutes every day. And during that 10 minutes, I do a stupid, crazy ab workout. And two of my boys join me every day. It's kind of fun. So that's some intentionality we do with them. But the other thing I'm in the middle of right now, and this is not something I was going to necessarily, we talked on my show about posers, and I sometimes feel like a poser, Frank, because there's different hats I wear. And one of the hats I wear is I shear alpacas. And I travel around and I give these alpacas haircuts. But my sole reason for it is I can take my 3 younger boys with me and I can teach them work ethic. I can teach them customer service. I can teach them animal care. And these are things I can teach them that I can't teach them in my real estate business or coaching business or other things. So it's a very intentional thing I do. I mean, it makes me money, but I seriously do it now just because it's benefiting my boys.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. And it's crazy, Marty. We're almost 7 full years into the podcast, episode 331. And this is the first conversation about giving alpacas haircuts that I've ever had. So we definitely accomplished something here today. We talked about something that's never been talked about before on the Superhuman Life podcast. So that's amazing, man. But what it sounds like is through the work, that side of the business that you're involving your kids with, through the Bible, listening, through the being intentional about how you're doing the physical transformation, is you're trying to intentionally live and model the example of what a non-complacent adult would look like, which I think was the answer that I was hoping to kind of extract out of you. Right. Because I think that's important. You know, what is it? The saying is more is caught, not taught, right? So it's like, it's not, the kids aren't going to pick up on the things that we say to them. They're going to model the things that they see us do. It's interesting because we have a complete, full home gym down in the garage, and kids here are 10 and 7, but they're at the age where, to them, training, whether it's going to the gym or doing it in the garage, is just a part of normal life. Both of their parents are intentional about the way that they eat. So they're out there. Can you train us? Can you put us through a workout? Like, a couple times a week, we're putting these kids through workouts. Like they're developing the love and passion for something that will stick with them forever. Very intentional about that. Very intentional about eating family together. We're the same with no screens. I mean, they're 10 and 7, so they don't have phones, but even monitoring and limiting time on the television, right? Very, very intentional about that. Getting into the Word, praying over dinner, praying before bed. So, caught not taught, man. I love that.
Something I'm doing right now with my boys too is this is my big F goal for family, and that was to read 12 missionary biographies to them, and we do that before bed. And I really feel like that will have a huge impact on them as they read about men and women of faith who've served the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Your 7 F's: faith, fitness, family, finance, friends, future self, and fun. I think we've touched on 6 of the 7 here. We just talked about faith. We've talked a lot about fitness, your goal to get the 6-pack, family, how you're incorporating family and all these intentional things that you're doing, finance, the real estate side of things, friends. We talked about brotherhood, future self. We talked about having that desire, that vision for that ultimate version of ourselves. Unpack fun. Like what do you mean when you are intentional about fun, and why is that important to living a intentional life?
This is on there, Frank, because I struggle with it. I love to grind. I love to work. And I realize that a more complete, a more superhuman being has fun too. And it's rest. It's breaking the norm. It's not always the grind. The validation, I get validation from working hard. And so it's a break from that. You could call it a Sabbath, but for me, it's just a break from the regular routine where I try to slow down and process and invest in other things besides entrepreneurship. And it could be might be fun. It might be a vacation. I might be, a ski trip. But for me, it's just a seizing, a stopping of normal routine and creating space to slow down and have fun.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. We talked about the importance of pursuing your wife, dating your wife, being intentional about the relationship, being intentional about the intimacy. A lot of the guys that come into our world, intimacy has been broken. Sexless marriage. They're struggling with pornography. They've been disconnected from their wives. One of our top performing episodes ever is with my great friend Tony DiLorenzo. Him and his wife run One Extraordinary Marriage, and they wrote a book called The Six Pillars of Intimacy. And it's kind of, when you focus in on these six pillars, it's like the rest of the marriage kind of begins to thrive. The sex takes care of itself when you prioritize the other five pillars, and they're spiritual intimacy, financial intimacy, emotional intimacy, physical intimacy, sexual intimacy, recreational intimacy, ensuring that you're having fun with the person that you're building and committing a life to. So that's one we've talked about a lot, because I shared it on your show. We talked about it here. It's like a lot of guys, once they put that ring on, it feels like the end goal, right? And it's like being intentional about enjoying doing fun things with the person that you're committed to building a life to. I'm fascinated with the brain. Like, we do a lot of neuroplasticity training in our worlds. Mammals, every mammal has a play circuit. There are literal neural pathways in our brain that, when you engage in playful activity, light up. It's an important part of being a human being. It's an important part of being any type of mammal. So if you're struggling with complacency, if you're struggling with addiction, if you're struggling with just not finding real joy out of life, check yourself in that fun bucket. Are you making sure you're intentional about spending time daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, just engaging in meaningful, playful, recreational activities? So important. And much like you, it's an area that I struggled for a long time as well. It was grind, work, build, do this, do that. It's like, no, man, it's like I have the best life when I'm engaging in fun. 5 years ago, I enrolled in the men's softball league at church. And it's like, a couple months out of the year, 2 seasons per year, it's like I spend time in fellowship and brotherhood, but engaging in competitive play. Like, I love being an athlete. I love competing. So there's fun tied into that. So I love all that. Um, what are some signs in a guy's life that maybe he's beginning to show up complacent?
I I think if he's resistant to doing something hard, um, if you uh, phones is an easy one. If you've got to have your phone in your pocket at all times, like there's probably an issue there. There's probably a drift. If you know you've got to have junk food on the weekends, like there's probably something off. Like, you're justifying it. Like, it's not a special event. It's regular. It's routine. I would probably say, honestly, watching television at night can be extremely complacent. Like, if you're mad because you can't find the remote when you get home, there's probably an issue. So I think it's just a matter of, someone told me years ago, they weren't telling me, it was a pastor and he was preaching, but it hit me. And he said, whatever makes you mad is probably an idol. And and at the time, my wife and I had conflict almost every night, because 8 o'clock would come and I'd say, it's bedtime. And she'd say, okay, kids, clean the house. And I would get upset, because I'd be like, you knew 8 o'clock was coming. Like, have them do it at 7:30, but now it's bedtime. But I realized it was an idol, and I was upset. I mean, it was stupid. I was upset about, but her idol was cleaning the house. She wanted to clean house. And so we had these idols, and it was creating conflict in our marriage. And it's so stupid. But that's what I would say is, I think you can notice a drift, because if there's something that makes you mad, like makes you react, there's probably some drift there. There's probably something there that's an idol that you need to be more intentional about doing away with.
Yeah. And to the guy that is feeling convicted here, knows that he's capable of a lot more, is feeling complacent. Next 24 hours, I know you're a man of plan and action. What's one step a man can take if he has realized after today's conversation that he's fallen into the trap of complacency?
I would say it starts right now. Um, Plan for tomorrow. Make today a success by going to bed tonight at a decent time. So you get up tomorrow and you start over. You push the reset and you meal plan. You do a workout. Like, that's what I would say. First off, just go work out, move your body. the ripple effects of moving your body will have all kinds of effects on other intentionality. But get up and do that and move your body and be intentional about the first few hours of the day, but go to bed tonight at a decent time so you can.
Yeah. Love that. Marty, tell us where the guys can connect with you. Check out your podcast. Let us know about your upcoming book, who it's for, and where they can grab a copy and release date.
Yeah, my book will be out, I think, mid-May. Who knows? It keeps getting drug out. But mid-May-ish, Kill Complacency will be on Amazon. My podcast is Kill Complacency. And you guys can find me, martyhoffmann.com, killcomplacency.com. My handle on most social medias is Marty Hofmann. It is Hofmann, 1 F, 2 N's. Separates me from a lot of other gurus. But yeah, I'm pretty much just Google me that way. You'll find me. If you want to learn more about alpaca shearing, integrityshearing.com, or YouTube me, you'll find me there shearing alpacas. But it's really not my proudest moment. I mean, I love it because it's for my boys, but it's not my identity like it used to be.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's amazing. Guys, we'll have all that plugged down there in the show notes, links to the website, links to the social, links to the podcast. Marty had me on there. We had an amazing conversation on identity and the mask that men wear and how to walk in truth. So we love to wrap it up here and end with the same question on every single episode. The title of our podcast, Marty, is called The Superhuman Life. So in terms of living intentional and killing complacency, how would you define living a superhuman life?
I think you're going to reverse engineer it. I think you're going to write your obituary and think about what you want it to say, and then reverse engineer that and be that man. So you want to have kids, you're going to have to get married. You're going to have to figure that out. If your obituary is going to say he gave regularly to charities, then you're going to have a business big enough that does that. That's what I would say. Be superhuman, write your obituary, reverse engineer your life, and create those daily habits to be that superhuman and be that person that leaves a legacy that lasts.
Start with the end in mind. Guys, we hope you enjoy this, got value. As always, if you want to support what we are doing here, if you haven't yet, make sure to leave that rating and review. And most importantly, if someone in your life that you know is struggling with drifting, falling into complacency, and you know this conversation can help them, do us the favor and them the blessing by sharing today's conversation. But it's my honor, Marty, to have you on here today. I appreciate you and the work that you're doing. Keep getting after it. Keep helping people live an intentional life. Guys, we love you. We'll see you in the next one.